I'll be reading from a treasure trove of scriptural transmission. When you're effortless abiding, you're also abiding in self-liberation, self-resolution. But where are you abiding? Are you abiding in the cycles? Are you abiding in the momentum of fabrication and conditioning, of creating plasticity, of writing it? Or are you zooming out, stepping out of that dimension into a broader scope of the nature of mind, your awareness, your mind, the presence of your mind? So when you're in the presence of mind, yes, there might be cycles still rolling on, old friends that come. You may even find yourself stuck in emotional knots and physical kind of binding. Like if you get an injury, we think about it a lot. And we tend to actually overemphasize our suffering that way, even creating it. So, effortless abiding, letting things be. And then the great middle way here is that you can let it be and still be involved. See, the wind is involved with the sky and with everything that it touches, but it doesn't try to be the wind. It doesn't try to go somewhere and plan things. It doesn't get stuck in thought as it breezes by. So we don't need to get stuck in thought. We can just rest in open awareness, pure presence. And if a thought comes and goes, if a sense object arises or catches our attention, we have spaciousness then. And we learn not to get involved, not to play with the stuff with attachment and grasping. But we also bail out of our thinking mind. This is important. Bailing out. Again, it's like the difference between being stuck in a room, your blinds closed, maybe even the VR headset on, virtual reality headset on, and you've never seen the outside world. Well, this is like, it can be like that when we get stuck in our thoughts, our preoccupations. Then somebody introduces you to awareness, like space, without a reference point. Then all of a sudden they introduce you to the outside, but you're not used to it. It's bright, it's vivid. So we go back into the room where it's comfortable. And then your spiritual guide or your meditation friend, whatever you want to call it, your teacher, your guru, they pull you out of the house, maybe a few times, saying, come on, no, stay here with me. Stay outside. And you can go in the house whenever you want. Many houses you can go into. Fun houses, haunted houses. But we start to get that freedom, you see. We're not stuck in some place, in some conceptual confines. So let's read a little bit from the section, chapter 13, on awakening to Buddhahood. I'm hoping to get some support from Longchenpa on kind of what I'm getting at here. All right. So I'll start here. It's gonna basically, it's towards the end of the book, so it's gonna be after you've been introduced and you're familiarized with the nature of mind. So when you have thus followed the path to its consummation, the fruition is the nature of sublime enlightenment becoming fully evident. It is like a flawless gem that spontaneously grants everything one could wish for. When you have gained total familiarity with the meaning of natural great perfection, the essence of being becomes fully evident as the spontaneously present unity, beyond union or separation, of the kayas and timeless awareness. When the manifest aspect of the ground of being initially arises from that ground, the ingrained habit of investing what manifests with identity gives rise to confused perception and all it entails, as well as ordinary mind and the 8 avenues of consciousness that derive from it, including the basis of all ordinary experience, and the 5 mind-body aggregates that perpetuate samsara. All this constitutes obscuration, which can be compared to a cloud cover. When you are purified of this, spontaneously present Dharmakaya, naturally occurring, timeless awareness, is the sun within you, shining clearly without anything obscuring it. Beautiful, huh? Well, here, by the way, even the translator, if they tried, could not hide this or cover it up. It's basically uh, showing that Dharmakaya and your awareness, your own awareness, are synonymous. It says here, spontaneously present Dharmakaya, and part of the same sentence, naturally occurring timeless awareness. Yeah. So more and more, we're getting used to enlightenment, complete freedom. And it doesn't look the way we have conceived and idealized. It's not going to look that way. In fact, it's not going to look at all. It's going to be beyond looking, beyond conceiving. But we're getting used to, when we effortless abide, we're getting used to perfection. That's why I always say, embrace the feeling that you're done. You've completely arrived. Everything's perfect. Here it's not just talk. We can actually come into that realization. And of course, our good old friends will pull us away and say, no, 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 but, 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 but it's not perfect. But I'm not enlightened. But I can't practice Dzogchen. But Dawei is not a good guy. I don't know. The one usually who's pulling you out of your ego is resented. I understand that. I take that position. That's okay. But let's continue. Allow yourself to have hateful thoughts, judgmental thoughts. Let them, just noticing them. Just these thoughts being in your awareness. You don't need, see, what we do is let's take this funny example of being mad at your teacher, because this has happened. So, screw this guy, this Dawei guy, you have this thought. And if you let it come and go, you could come back here and say, man, hey, Dawei, I had some pretty crazy thoughts about you, but it's nice to see you. Let's have a meditation. Or, screw this Dawei guy. And then 5 minutes later, he's just, always talking about Dzogchen nonstop. Always wants me to sit quietly. I don't want to sit quietly. I want to play Call of Duty. So you're elaborating that, and then you come here and you're like, oh, here's this guy again trying to, talk about all this bull crap. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. There's no nudity. So you're like elaborating, and then you're snowballing your hate. So there's a difference between having one thought about something, letting it come and go. It can be very Amusing even. Wow, I can't believe that thought just came and went in my mind. Or you can let that thought then, really gain a momentum and a life. And do you want that? That's why I say in the beginning, try just being aware of your thoughts, noticing when they're repetitive, particularly the afflictive emotions and things like that. When your sadness, oh, this sadness was here yesterday, last week, 2 weeks ago. Just notice that repetitive nature, cyclic nature of certain thoughts and emotions. But then also notice when they're in the negative bias, when they're judgmental, when they're mean spirited towards yourself and others. Yeah, just the noticing is fine. Now, what else can happen if I say, "Oh, Dawei, that guy, stupid teacher guy"? Well, what else can happen there? If I hold that, then I have a little bit of hate inside me, don't I? If I say that to say, "Oh, Miguel Rinpoche, he's not a good teacher. He charges so much money for his programs." If I start thinking like this, then I hold the resentment, I hold the hate, and I hold the non-perfection. Yeah. And then you also think of yourself as, wow, I'm the guy that had these evil thoughts. I'm the person who had these evil thoughts. You kind of start to go into a real internal struggle there, a battle, just by you elaborating on a hateful thought instead of letting that hateful thought come and go and laughing at it, or even just, wow, okay, you know, because we've all had thought. They're not our thoughts; they're just electricity in the collective nexus. You may have had violent thoughts, and that reptilian brain gets pretty cray cray. I know. Yeah, you've had sexual thoughts, anger, all that stuff. Uh, Unless you let it come and go, it really does become you. Then it is your identity, and it can define you. And not having a bunch of thoughts that we're hooked on, even about Dzogchen, is incredibly freeing. So I'll continue reading here. Hmm. When you are purified of this, yeah, spontaneously present Dharmakaya, naturally occurring, timeless awareness, is the sun within you, shining clearly without anything obscuring you. From the three kayas, which are like the orb of the sun, enlightened activity radiates like the sun's rays in all directions, ensuring benefit. Such is the fruition of this approach. So I just want to also state that when you do effortless abiding, all your cycles are running out of momentum because you're no longer in them, fueling them. So you're actually allowing them to run their course, which I think is one of the most useful definitions of nirvana. You're in a state or a stream of nirvana then. And you're allowing self-liberation, self-resolution. And what's left over under that is a space-like being. So your compassion, confidence, wisdom, empathy, joy, bliss, all these things, as well as the five wisdoms of this all-accomplishing wisdom, discernment, equality. These are all things as well that are space-like now. Your compassion is space-like. It's not coming from one location and picking and choosing. Oh, I'm going to be compassionate towards them, but not towards them. I'm going to be compassionate. I love birds. Um, but I hate snakes because they kill the birds. Yet the birds kill the worms, which are little snakes. You know? So we love the cat, but we hate murderers. We hate people that kill people. Yeah, we love this cat that absolutely tortures things if it has a chance. But don't get me wrong, I think cats can be reformed if you give them lots of love. It's weird, I've seen it. They actually start to value life and see life. That's the whole thing. I think some animals they don't know it's a life, they think it's like a toy, you know. But if they know it's a life, then actually animals can be so compassionate. It's remarkable. But we have all these biases. We're also incredibly sizest. You know, our nose literally has a weaponized nostrils that kill bacteria purposefully so that they don't hurt us. So we're like murdering every inhalation, okay? Yet we're so adamant about not killing. Yeah, so this is a proprietary framework, but when you rest in compassion, then if there's killing, you still have a sincerity and a depth about that. So it's okay. The killing happens. You can't really stop that. That's the nature of the appearances, they're kind of flickering in and out. And uh, we're in a collective where beings are collectively flickering in and out based on their own minds. Um, And so if there is death, if there is war and things like that, remember that these are just happening according to your perspective and your scale too. So that's why it's worthwhile to rest in naturalness, your natural compassion, what they call your natural state, a state of completion, enlightenment, the great perfection, to rest here in this pure presence. And then even if somebody's dying around you, that's the best place you could be. Not sitting there thinking of all this stuff and being very dense and small in that dimension. No. Okay. So the essence of sublime enlightenment is consummate Dharmakaya, endowed with twofold purity, becoming fully evident. I think twofold purity is referring to pure presence. So Kadak and Londo. So the root text here says, if through the key point of effortlessness there is familiarity, the very essence of enlightenment, the spontaneous presence of phenomenon, although Buddhahood is timeless, there's awakening to Buddhahood anew. Very powerful line right there. Okay? It says the key point is effortlessness. And anybody from the lower yanas would take that wrong. They would just perhaps become hedonistic or disregard their ethics and practice. But once you're an awareness holder, you know exactly what effortlessness means. And that is the key point right here. Longchenpa is saying that. There's familiarity with enlightenment itself, not provisional rigpa, not provisional yanas. We're talking about enlightenment itself here in pure presence, okay? And too much doubt has fermented in our meditation world about it. Is liberation accessible? So much so that it's mentioned by many great masters, like, dude, pick it up. Enlightenment is here. This is for real, you know? And so now we make it palatable. We make it more accessible. We relate it to science. We relate it to rituals. I mean, every 100 years, Dzogchen is being incorporated into something else, just so people can actually see that it's there. So the spontaneous presence of phenomenon, although Buddhahood is timeless, there's awakening to Buddhahood anew. So it's really a conventional kind of designation there. Awakening itself is a conventional kind of designation. Um, like pouring water into water. It's a recognition, right? You're recognizing, you're recognizing the nature of mind. So cognition, cognizing, cognition. And within that blast, that little flash of recognition, the conditioning itself is put out of commission. I had to, I'm sorry. Gotta have some fun with this stuff, right? Conditioning is put out of commission. So, I can't see if anybody's smiling off of that one, but I'm sure you are. and you're welcome. Dad joke complete. So let's continue, please. Enough of this silliness. This is the unsurpassable pinnacle of the Vajra heart essence, the vast expanse of enlightenment, the very essence of the 9 progressive approaches. And of course, there it's referring to the Nyingma 9 yanas, which are also found in the Bon tradition. Very ancient curriculum, in my opinion. I've found evidence for the 9 yanas dating back to the time of the Buddha. I wrote a whole piece on it, actually. How there's evidence for Mahayana and so-called Vajra. Now it's called Vajrayana. Before, I I would be as bold to say is that it was all incorporated into Mahayana. And at the ancient Viharas, for example, in Sri Lanka and others, you had the Shravakas and the Mahayanas, so almost like freshman and sophomore kind of classes. And then I think you had the elders and the yogis as the senior years, actually. And those are the ones that got persecuted and ousted. And there are Chinese monks documenting that as early as 400 and even earlier, probably. For example, in the Tarim Basin, Kushten, and other areas, there's documentation to this day. They say that Buddha Shakyamuni was there visiting. So and they still speak of Mahayana that was up there in the Tarim Basin very early on. So in my opinion, the whole curriculum has always been there. It's just been fragmented. And when it migrated from India to Tibet, it was preserved, thankfully. Otherwise, we would not have it. Yeah, yeah, that one's a little different. That one has awakening. Thank you, though, Yeshi, for finding that. That one is specifically on awakening. I have another one that's evidence for Mahayana and Vajrayana in Theravada. So I don't know if that one's on Reddit or not. I just remember writing and researching that. And then they have the Mahasuttas that you can look into for evidence of Tantra in the Pali Canon. Of course, in the Pali Canon, they also have Mahakala, they have graveyard meditations, they have Avalokiteshvara deity practices, which is actually the compassion practice, right? So very interesting, we have this kind of internet Theravada that's very idealized and I would say secular. It's very divisive sometimes against Mahayana and Vajrayana. But if you meet many Theravada monastics out there, for example, you'll see them at the Dalai Lama's temple begging in Dharamsala. Uh, I have a friend who practices the Avalokiteshvara sadhana, Kuan Yin, however you may know that personification of compassion. So it's incredibly remarkable. You can find a holistic curriculum there, a whole path, and that would be the 9 yanas, okay?